Hey guys, today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about me identifying as a transgender male. Going back to when I was little, growing up, I didn't actually know. And a lot of people are like, well, you're supposed to know when you're little. In reality, like a therapist once explained to me that growing up, you don't know the meaning of all these words, you know? And so, like, when I was little, I didn't know what transgender was. All I knew were my feelings, and that's it. So, growing up, I idolized my father, you know? I looked up to him, and I wanted to do everything he did, you know? He got to walk around without a shirt. I wanted to walk around without a shirt, you know? He standing up. I wanted to be standing up. And many of you guys are now like, what? No, you just wanted to be like your dad. That's what I thought, too, you know? I thought, well, I love my dad, you know? Like, I was a big daddy's kid growing up, so. But it wasn't that. As I grew up, there began to be a lot more quote unquote signs that I didn't realize then. You know, looking back on it, I can pinpoint it and be like, oh, this was a sign. One of them was actually when I hit puberty, you know, identifying as a transgender, either male or female. You know that, like, if you hit puberty in the sex you were born, the gender and the sex you were born in, it's hard, you know? It really, like, does damages to your self-esteem. And when I started hitting puberty, unfortunately, when I started, you know, getting boobs, I was so mad, you know? I was so mad. I was so mad at God, even, you know? I used to, like, you know, pray up to him and be like, well, if you loved me, God, then you wouldn't do this to me. And I was so mad for so long, and I didn't understand why. Again, like, I was little, and I didn't understand. I just knew that there were these feelings I had, and I didn't understand, you know? As I grew up, I began to be classified as a tomboy, you know? Oh, well, you're a girl, but you like to do boyish things. You're a tomboy. And so when I heard that phrase, I was like, oh, okay, that's what I am. And so I grew up with that, you know, and I was like, okay, I'm just a tomboy. Before I actually figured out I was transgender, I began to realize my feelings towards other people. And I began to realize that, you know, like, instead of liking boys like I was supposed to, I started liking girls, you know. I had a huge crush on my best friend in, like, the 3rd grade. And I was just like, what is this? Why do I like her? And so I was like, oh, okay, so I must be a lesbian then, you know? I'm a girl, I like girls, that's what it is. I'm just lesbian. And as I grew older and got through middle school and started going to high school, I began to be labeled as a butch of a lesbian. And I was like, oh, okay, that must be it. Like, I'm just a masculine version of a lesbian. That's it. And yet, like, being called a lesbian and a butch and all these, it didn't feel right. Like, something didn't feel right, and I didn't understand. To be honest, none of it hit me till I was a freshman in high school. You know, I had to change in locker rooms like girls before, but it was small, it wasn't the same. And then I got to high school my freshman year, and I remember being sent to the girls' locker room, and I felt so wrong, and I couldn't understand why. And I later found out that it's because I felt like I was cheating the system in a sense. Like, I was a guy in the girls' locker room, and I felt wrong, you know? And even though, like, I realized this freshman year, I was like, you're not a girl, you want to be a boy, that's it, that's it. I didn't accept it. And I guess you could say I didn't accept it. I didn't say it out loud. I didn't act on it. It was just a thought in my head. And I want to say that is completely normal, you know? You need time to come out to yourself first, you know? And so I had to process it. I was in my head. And in fact, I didn't come out till I was a junior, you know? To be honest, it was halfway through junior year, and I had started going to therapy, and I was sitting across a therapist, and we were talking, and I had this, like, I was like, it was bottled up, and I was like, I gotta talk to somebody. And unfortunately for me, like, I wasn't 100% okay with therapy. So I left that section without telling her. And I was like, I gotta talk to someone I trust. I ended up calling my best friend at the time. And I called her. And I'll never forget this. This was like a very important moment in my life. I called her. And I was like, hey, you got a second? And she's like, yeah, no, yeah, what's up? What's wrong? And I kept stalling. I didn't know how to say it. And she was so patient with me. She was like, it's okay. You know, you don't have to tell me now. We can talk about this later, like, whenever you're ready. And eventually, like, I blurted out, I think I might want to be a boy. And her response, which personally I thought was one of the best responses in the world, was, that's okay. We could figure it out. You don't have to know right now. And to be honest, that is what I needed, you know? Like, I knew, but I didn't want to admit I knew. And it was like the self-doubt. And she handled it perfectly. And in fact, like, about a day or a week later, she texted me randomly and said, hey, I just want you to know you're not alone. I'll be here for you. I've been doing a lot of research. Just know I'm here for you. And that was amazing to know, you know? And she was one of the first people to know. She was one of the only people to know for a while, you know? I didn't know how to come out, how to accept it, what to do. And so I would always talk to her, tell her how I felt. In fact, she's the one who convinced me to come out to my grandmother and my mother. She's the one to convince me to get a haircut. And it wasn't really convince me, but like, it was more like, this is something you want to do. Don't be afraid. And I think I'm very thankful to have had her, because I feel like if I didn't, I wouldn't be here today, you know? And I'll never forget coming out to anyone, you know? When I came out to my mother, I was so petrified. I had to write it in a letter. And I guess I didn't write the letter well enough or something, because I had to actually come out to my mother quite a few times, like more than once. When I came out to my grandmother, it was in a Kohl's parking lot, you know? My mother had ran in to return something, and I stood in the car and I called her. And my grandma's Spanish, like, you know, I'm talking to her Spanish. And in Spanish, I'm like, Grandma, I got something to tell you. I don't want to be a girl. I want to be a boy. And she said, that's okay. I love you, and you'll always be my little baby. And as a person, like, I love my grandma. She is my world. And I was so afraid to come out to her. You know, we had this great relationship, and I was so terrified that coming out as transgender would ruin it. But she was like, no, I love you. You know, even until today, you know, she doesn't quite understand it, but she tries, you know. She's like, I don't want to ever make you feel uncomfortable. You are my baby, and I love you. And I'm glad I have that kind of grandmother, you know. But when I came out to my sister, her response was, I already knew. Like, I already knew. Like, I think she said she had heard me talking about it or something. But she said, I didn't want to confront you. I wanted you to tell me when you were ready. I came out to around junior year as well. No, this is senior year. So junior year passed, and Emily's the only one who knows, mind you. Summer passes. I finally get the courage to cut my hair. I finally get the courage to, like, wear all boys' clothes, like, completely. Like, I threw out everything. I was like, nope. Like, you know, there was still a few quote-unquote girl stuff that I would wear, because I guess I just wanted to make other people happy. But I threw all that away, and I was like, no, this is new me. Senior year is when I came out to my mother, my grandmother, my sister. In fact, I actually came out to one of my best friends now. His name is actually Dane. In fact, I'm going to put a link in the bio with what his YouTube is. He has his own YouTube. I came out to him, and I remember I came out to him. I was in, like, stage crew, where, you know, you build sets. I wanted to talk to him about being transgender because we have the same kind of family, and, you know, we had talked previously about personal stuff, and I know that his family is a lot like mine. So I came out to him for advice, and when I came out to him, he was like, want to know the funny thing? Me too. And I was like, what? In fact, our friendship like grew so much more. Mind you, I knew him. Like, we went to school together, had class with him, we played soccer together. We actually had a good friendship. But turns out, like, you know, me coming out to him as transgender, him coming out to me as transgender, it made us a lot closer because we finally had someone who understood us. I mean, really understood us. Like, I'm thankful for all the people who were really, like, you know, supportive of me and try to help me, but they didn't understand. But Dane did. Dane understood. In fact, to this day, you know, I text him about everything about trans-related. We talked about coming out to our parents, about being afraid of backlash and about the hate, about our insecurities, about starting tea, about our future plans, about dating. We talk about this, and I think it's because we understand what it's like, you know? We understand how scary it is, and how, you know, we're like, oh, like, you know? But yeah, Dane, you're watching this, man. Love you, dude. In fact, around that time, in high school though, senior year, I didn't want to come out to anyone in my high school, you know? My logic was always like, well, I'm never gonna see these people ever again, so why do I have to come out to them? I think, in all honesty, I wasn't 100% there in my transgender life period. I wasn't there until I became a freshman in college, you know? Halfway through college, I was like, what are you doing? You want to be identified as him and he, you want your name, you want people to call you Angel Jesus, so go out and do that. In fact, my freshman year in college, I came out to one of my closest cousins. She actually goes to college with me, and I remember she sat across from me, and I started to cry, and she was like, you can tell me anything, it's okay. And when I told her, she was like, why were you so afraid to tell me? And I was like, I don't know. I do not know, because she is one of the most accepting people in the world. Like, mind you, she used to give me rides that year, and we used to sit and talk. Like, we used to talk in the car rides, and she'd be like, she'd talk about how accepting she was, and I don't know, I guess there's something about coming out to someone you love, you know? You are so afraid that they'll be like, ew, what? Like, they'll ban you, they'll turn their backs on you. It is so terrifying. But luckily, I've had mostly all good responses, you know? And I'm happy for that, you know? Sitting here today, it's been a long journey of ups and downs, you know? I met a girl who completely accepts me for me, and is sitting, like, she goes with me to every doctor appointment. We talk about my future plans, my journey, and she says she loves me for me, you know? And it's great, you know? I started testosterone. In fact, I'm about to make a month of testosterone. I have a fund to get this top surgery because that is what I want. I've started, like, making people call me him and he and Angel, and I've come a far way, and I know there's a lot further for me to go, and it is scary sometimes to think about, but I honestly think the hard part is over. And I think the hardest part about being transgender is coming out to yourself and getting past that bump, and that is what I did. So yeah, that's my story so far about being transgender. See ya.